Hey, I'm Tom. I'm the kind of person who loves asking questions about everything, from the smallest everyday details to the things we see all the time but rarely stop to think about. And that is exactly why Ask Tom exists. This is the place where we explore fascinating, surprising, and sometimes unexpected stories hidden in the world around us. A lot of things seem ordinary at first, but once you look a little closer, there is often a really interesting explanation behind them. And today, in the very first video on this channel, we are starting with a question almost everyone has seen, but not many people have really thought about. Why are tires black? Why are tires always black? The surprising truth behind something we see every single day. Have you ever wondered why almost every vehicle on the road uses black tires? From bicycles and motorcycles to cars and trucks, it is almost always the same. We see it every day. It is so familiar that almost nobody stops to ask, why black? Because if you really think about it, tires could just as easily be white, gray, or almost any other color. And yet for a very long time, black has remained the overwhelmingly dominant choice, and a lot of people assume it is simply because black looks stronger. Others think it looks cleaner and hides dirt better. That sounds reasonable. But that is not the main reason. The truth is, the black color of a tire is not just about appearance. It is the result of a very smart engineering choice. And behind this detail that seems so ordinary, there is actually a whole story involving materials, durability, heat, sunlight, and driving safety. The first interesting thing is that tires were not always destined to be black the way they are today. When people think of rubber, many automatically assume it is naturally black. But that is not actually true. Natural rubber is much lighter in color, so it can look off-white or slightly yellowish. In other words, if you took natural rubber by itself and shaped it into a tire, the final result would not look like the tires we are used to seeing on the road today. In the early days of the tire industry, there were tires that were noticeably lighter in color. They looked very different from modern tires. But over time, black gradually became the nearly universal standard. And this is where the question starts to get really interesting. What made the entire industry settle on the same choice? The answer comes down to a very important ingredient called carbon black. It sounds a little technical, but you can think of it simply as a very fine carbon powder that gets mixed into rubber during the tire manufacturing process. That ingredient is what gives tires their black color. But the color is only the part we can see. What really matters is what it does to the quality of the tire. When carbon black is added, the rubber becomes more durable. It becomes tougher, it resists wear much better, and it becomes far more suitable for real-world driving conditions. That may sound like a small change, but for a part that has to work constantly, it makes a huge difference. On the surface, a tire seems pretty simple. It is just a ring of rubber wrapped around a wheel. But in reality, it is one of the hardest working parts of any vehicle. Every time a vehicle moves, the tires carry the full weight of that vehicle. They stay in direct contact with the road. They have to grip the surface to keep the vehicle from slipping. They have to absorb part of the vibration. They have to take impacts. And they also have to keep the vehicle stable in all kinds of conditions. And that is not all. Tires are constantly dealing with friction, and friction creates heat. The longer you drive, the more heat builds up. The faster the vehicle goes, the more heat is generated. The heavier the load, the more stress the tires have to handle. And that is where the problem begins. Rubber is a material with a lot of advantages, but if it is not improved in the right way, it can also wear down quickly under constant friction, heat, and environmental exposure. If the material is not strong enough, the tire will wear out faster. It can crack more easily, it can deform more easily, and of course, safety drops significantly. That is why manufacturers cannot just use raw rubber and call it a tire. They have to turn it into a material that is better suited for the real world. And carbon black is one of the most effective solutions for that. When carbon black is mixed into rubber, it does much more than change the color. It reinforces the material. Put simply, it makes the rubber stronger and more durable during use. Tires are constantly rubbing against the road. If they do not resist wear well, they break down much faster. Carbon black helps tires handle that much better. It also helps the tire manage and distribute heat more effectively while driving. And that matters a lot because high temperatures are always bad news for the lifespan of any material. A tire does not just need to grip the road, it also needs to survive thousands and sometimes tens of thousands of miles of use. And to do that, the material has to be highly optimized. There is another detail that many people do not think about. Tires do not only wear out from driving, they also slowly break down just from existing out in the environment. One of the biggest reasons is ultraviolet radiation from sunlight. UV rays can cause rubber to age over time. They make the material more brittle, more likely to crack, and less elastic than it used to be. If you have ever seen an old tire with tiny cracks on the surface, especially after spending a long time outdoors, that is a sign of material aging. And this is where carbon black proves its value again. This ingredient helps rubber hold up better against UV damage. It works like a quiet layer of protection. Because of that, the tire is not only stronger while driving, it is also more durable when it sits outside in the sun and faces harsh weather over long periods of time. The answer is yes. From a technical standpoint, tires do not have to be black. It is completely possible to make tires in other colors. In fact, throughout history, there have been tires with lighter colors. Some designs have also included colored decorative details on the sidewalls. But when you compare performance, durability, wear resistance, and overall lifespan, black turns out to be the most practical choice. Not because the color black itself has some kind of magical property, but because the ingredient that helps the tire perform better is the same ingredient that makes it black. Put simply, if your goal is to build a tire that is durable, stable, and reliable, black is almost the natural outcome. After decades of use, black is no longer just a technical choice. It has become the default image of what a tire is supposed to look like. We are used to wheels coming with black tires, so used to it that if a tire showed up in white, blue, or red, it would immediately look strange. And that is actually a pretty interesting thing about design and industry. Sometimes the decision begins as a technical solution, but after enough time it becomes a visual standard, and people start to see it as something completely normal. So why are tires black? Not just because they look tougher, not just because they look cleaner, but mainly because manufacturers add carbon black to rubber to make tires more durable, more resistant to wear, better at handling aging, and more reliable in real-world conditions. In other words, the black color of a tire is more the result of engineering than appearance. And that is exactly what makes this topic so interesting. A lot of things around us seem completely ordinary, but behind them there is often a surprisingly smart story about science and design. If you enjoy questions like this, leave the next topic you want to explore in the comments. Who knows, something you see every day might be hiding an explanation you have never noticed before.